a calm terminal, a businessman's briefcase, and a police dog who just wouldn't stop barking. What they uncovered next stopped the entire airport cold. The full story's right here. But before we roll it, tell me in the comments what you'd do if your dog sensed something no one else could. The morning rush at Terminal D of Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport had begun like any other. Outside, the Arizona sun spilled over the tarmac, glinting off polished fuselages and casting long reflections through the vast floor-to-ceiling windows. Inside, the usual rhythm of rolling suitcases, distant gate announcements, and espresso machines played beneath a rising murmur of travelers from every corner of the country. Amid the movement, a pair of brown eyes stayed fixed on the crowd with an intensity that never wavered. Canine Officer Delta, a 5-year-old Belgian Malinois, moved with quiet purpose beside her handler, Officer Lauren Briggs. She was trained for explosives detection, counter-smuggling operations, and threat assessment. Delta was not just part of airport security, she was the reason things stayed safe when they went wrong. Lauren adjusted her Navy utility vest as Delta paused, nose low, scanning the air in tight semicircles. It was routine. Every 30 minutes they rotated through gates, lounges, and baggage areas, eyes and nose always searching for what no one else saw. Delta had never been wrong. She passed the food court without incident, ears twitching only slightly at the waft of fried eggs and cinnamon buns. Travelers bustled past in waves, families with tired toddlers, business executives glued to their phones, backpackers still sticky from long hauls through desert trails. But just as they neared gate D-17, Delta stopped. Completely, her body stiffened, tail down, nose high. Lauren slowed, instinctively placing her hand on the leash's quick-release latch. Delta took one step forward, then another, slow and low. Her entire body was tracking something invisible to the eye, but not the scent. There, just ahead, a lone man stood near the charging station by a structural column, mid-40s, neatly dressed in a tailored gray suit, no outward signs of stress. A carry-on roller bag stood to his right, and beside that, what drew Delta's focus, a small black briefcase, unremarkable in appearance. Lauren's heart thudded once. She studied the dog. Delta didn't give her usual indicate signal yet, but she wasn't moving away. Instead, she gave a sharp exhale through her nose and locked her eyes on the briefcase. Then the first bark came, sharp, direct, echoing off the glass around them. And then another, and another. Passengers nearby flinched. A few took a step back. Lauren stepped forward quickly, raising a gloved hand toward the crowd. "Everyone, please give us space, airport security check." The man looked up, startled. His expression was composed, but there was something too slow about the way his eyes shifted from Delta to the briefcase, then to Lauren. Calculated, measured. "Sir, please step back from your belongings," Lauren said. "I beg your pardon?" the man replied calmly. "Is there a problem?" Delta let out another deep bark, then began pacing in a circle around the briefcase. Not random barking patterned. Her posture stiffened into full alert. Lauren had seen it twice before, once when Delta detected buried accelerants in a cargo plane. The other, a chemical device smuggled into a speaker unit at a music festival. This was no false alarm. Lauren keyed her radio. Unit 24 requesting immediate containment. Possible code Amber at gate D-17. Bomb K9 alerting on suspicious luggage. Begin evacuation of surrounding gates. The man's eyebrows twitched slightly. "I assure you there's nothing in there but presentation materials and a laptop. I'm headed to a trade show in Boston. Sir, please step away from the briefcase and stand over here." Lauren's tone left no room for protest. Delta stayed planted, barking once more with sharp insistence. As backup units began to arrive, passengers were calmly diverted toward adjacent gates. A soft, pleasant voice over the speaker announced a maintenance delay as uniformed officers surrounded the area. Lauren didn't look away from the briefcase. The man whose ID and boarding pass read Nathan Ward complied without resistance, but his gaze never returned to Delta. Instead, he kept looking at his phone, not texting, just staring at the screen. Delta took 2 sharp steps forward and growled. Not fear, not uncertainty. Warning. Lauren's throat tightened. Bomb squad technicians arrived within minutes, followed by a hazmat-trained explosives response team. They brought in a mobile X-ray scanner, wheeled up quietly like a medical gurney with mechanical arms. The terminal's chatter had gone silent. Delta was pulled back into a side corridor while the techs in full protective suits worked. Lauren stayed by her side, stroking the back of her ears to keep her steady. The dog was focused but calm now, knowing she had done her part. "Object inside shows unusual internal frame," one tech muttered to the other. "Definitely not a standard briefcase lining." There was no ticking, no beeping, nothing that Hollywood would dramatize. Just a briefcase, one that should have been ordinary, one that was not. And then came the decision: open it remotely. Passengers were now fully rerouted. Terminals D16 through D18 were cleared, all flights redirected. Bomb techs huddled around a secure remote rig and prepared the robotic arm. Lauren stayed near the perimeter, eyes locked on Delta, who had gone completely silent. She always did that when things were about to shift. The latch on the briefcase opened with a metallic pop. The top lifted. Inside, nestled in a padded frame, were three things: a sealed metallic canister, about the size of a thermos, a soft foam cutout with glass vials filled with cloudy green-tinged fluid, and beneath that a slim plastic sheet with embedded circuitry and a blinking red light. Delta let out a low rumble. Lauren knew that sound. Something in there was active. Techs immediately halted the operation. A warning went up through the radio net. Unknown biomaterials, possible vapor activation, containment team to prep. The man, Nathan Ward, watched with an odd calmness as two men in full hazmat suits approached. His hands were zip-tied now, and he sat on the floor against a column. No expression, no panic. Lauren walked over, standing just outside his line of sight. She had questions she couldn't ask. But Delta already knew. This wasn't an ordinary business trip. An hour later, inside the secondary debriefing zone, Delta lay beside Lauren's chair. Her chest rose and fell in steady rhythm, but her eyes didn't close. She was listening. Nathan Ward had been transported to a secure facility, his credentials matching a high-level consulting firm checked out. But further inspection revealed something strange. The company had closed its U.S. branch 3 years ago. The phone he carried was a dummy. The passport showed signs of micro-tampering, but more disturbing were the initial results from the vials inside the case. Not explosive, not narcotic, something else. Preliminary field tests indicated an engineered compound, biochemical, with pressure-triggered dispersion design, possibly synthetic nerve agents or experimental inhalants. The lab techs couldn't identify it using standard airport kits, but Delta had known. Lauren watched as her partner raised her head slightly at the sound of boots outside the debrief room. A senior Homeland Security agent stepped in, his badge glinting under the fluorescent lights. "We need to speak with you both," he said, "and we'll be needing Delta's training records, all of them." "Why?" Lauren asked. The agent didn't answer at first. Then he gestured to the case file in his hand. "Because whatever she just found," he said slowly, "it's not on any known list. No training dog should be able to detect it." Lauren looked down at Delta. The dog didn't break eye contact, didn't flinch. She had found something no machine, no scanner, no human could. Something that was never meant to be discovered. It was nearly dark by the time Lauren got home. She lived outside Phoenix in a quiet suburb near the South Mountain Preserve. The evening wind carried desert dust, and the saguaro cacti cast long shadows in the amber light. Delta curled up in the corner of the living room, not asleep but resting. Lauren sat on the couch watching the news flicker silently on the TV. There were no headlines about the terminal lockdown, just a mention of a flight delay and routine screening procedures. She knew that was how it had to be. No need to create panic, but still, she could feel the weight of what had almost happened. As she looked over to Delta, now licking her paws gently, Lauren felt a familiar mix of gratitude and quiet awe. Whatever was in that briefcase was built to pass undetected. But not by Delta. Never by Delta. The following morning brought no calm. By 6:30 a.m., the FBI's Mobile Operations Unit had rolled into Phoenix Sky Harbor, turning a quiet administrative wing into a sealed investigation zone. Laptops whirred, telemetry monitors blinked, and in a room filled with tactical gear, laminated maps, and half-empty coffee cups, Officer Lauren Briggs sat once again with Delta, who lay at her feet like a shadow with a heartbeat. But this time, it was not just airport security that was watching. Two federal agents in dark suits moved quietly behind one-way glass. Across from Lauren sat a behavioral analyst, clipboard in hand, who reviewed Delta's file with visible unease. "You're sure she wasn't trained to detect biochemical compounds?" the woman asked again, tapping a section of the page. Lauren nodded. "She's certified in explosives, firearms, residue, accelerants. Nothing biological. We didn't even run her through narcotics because of her response threshold. She doesn't false alert, yet she found a sealed biochemical payload with no known profile." Lauren stayed silent. "She didn't hesitate," the woman added. "Went straight to it." Delta's ears twitched. Outside the room, two more agents examined the briefcase's remains, now secured in a hardened case. The vials were being transported to a top-tier lab in Quantico. Early indicators suggested something new, a vaporized compound with delayed activation, possibly engineered, possibly unstable. It had no signature, no off-gassing. It should not have been detectable. Yet Delta had reacted immediately. The question wasn't why anymore. It was how. By mid-afternoon, the man calling himself Nathan Ward had stopped cooperating. Homeland Security verified that he had entered the U.S. 3 weeks earlier through a private airfield in upstate New York, using the same false identity. His path had looped through small-town hotels, an abandoned biotech warehouse in Flagstaff, and ended with a ticket purchased only 30 minutes before the Phoenix flight. Surveillance footage showed he had no driver, no companions. But an FBI analyst reviewing the video noticed something strange. 3 days earlier, another man had used a nearly identical briefcase, same model, same make, same security latches, at Denver International. No alert had been triggered there, no Canine had reacted. But the briefcase had never left the terminal. It disappeared after passing through a private lounge. Lauren was brought in again, this time with Delta. They were shown footage. Delta watched the Denver playback without movement. But the moment a frame showed a man in a light trench coat standing near the briefcase, her body stiffened. Then she barked. Once. The same way she had near Gate D-17. They called it an echo response, a behavior seen in rare working dogs who register scent, not just in real time but remember trace compounds later, often during review. Delta was showing memory-based alerting. The analyst paused the footage. "That man's face is obscured," he said, "but look at this." He pulled up the flight logs. The trenchcoat man had left on a charter plane 2 hours after the footage. Destination, Anchorage, Alaska. Departed under a shell company's name that was now under investigation. 3 devices, 3 locations, no detonations, no incidents, just movement. Until Phoenix, until Delta. That evening, Lauren was escorted to a secure holding area at the edge of the airport's property. Inside a hangar repurposed for high-value detainment, Nathan Ward, if that was even his real name, sat in a reinforced interview room. He had requested one thing, to see the dog. Supervisors debated. Agents resisted, but someone in command allowed it on condition the room be controlled. Lauren entered first. Delta leashed tightly, stance neutral but eyes forward. The man looked up, and for the first time something changed in his face. He smiled. "You're the one, huh?" he said softly. Delta growled once, low, steady, unwavering. She found what machines couldn't. That's the part they never understood. You can enhance sensors all day, but instinct, that's harder to replicate. Lauren didn't reply. She let Delta hold the space. She trusted her partner's judgment more than any polygraph. They used to say dogs were outdated, replaceable, but here we are. Lauren watched the man closely. He leaned forward, chains rattling slightly. There are more, they won't find them in time, not without her. But they won't let her near them, will they? Because she scares them, because she shouldn't be able to do what she just did. Delta's eyes narrowed. The man sat back. She's not like the others, neither are you. That's what makes you dangerous. Lauren left without a word. But in her chest, something had shifted. This wasn't about one briefcase anymore. Later that night, Delta paced. Back in their department kennel, used only during emergencies, Lauren had tried to settle her down. But Delta kept circling the perimeter of the room, stopping at the door each time, then returning to the center as if waiting for instruction. Lauren knew that behavior. Delta had felt something, and she was waiting to go back out. Lauren pulled up a report just uploaded by another agent. It contained flight logs from 2 cargo flights out of Phoenix over the past 48 hours, both unlisted in public manifest. One headed to Tampa, the other to Oakland. Each had stopped briefly in Flagstaff, the same town the suspect had visited. Lauren keyed into the secure terminal and requested authorization for a review sweep. She entered Delta's credentials. Denied. Level red security only. She didn't stop. She called Captain Rhodes, head of the regional counter-terror team. 10 minutes later, her access was elevated. Lauren suited up. Delta sat by the door, already knowing. They were going to the cargo bay. It was close to midnight when Lauren and Delta reached the northern freight wing. The tarmac was nearly empty except for one freighter being loaded for an overnight departure. Lauren showed her clearance to a sleepy supervisor and began the sweep. It wasn't the usual patrol. Delta moved quickly, nose low, tail still, eyes flicking from one crate to the next. Nothing for the first 20 yards. Then a shift. Her pace slowed, her ears rose, her stride shortened. Lauren watched, hand on the quick release again. Delta turned a sharp corner near a refrigeration unit and froze. Then barked 3 times, loud, measured, final. Lauren raised her radio. "This is Officer Briggs. I need an EOD and biohazard team on site. Possible second package found." Canine confirmed alert. She moved closer, flashlight sweeping. There, among industrial containers of seafood and floral shipments, sat a crate with no markings, no labels, no manifests. Delta stood stiff, eyes locked on it. And suddenly the entire terminal didn't just freeze, it knew. This wasn't the end. It was the next chapter, and Delta had just opened it. By the time dawn broke over Phoenix, the refrigerated cargo zone of Terminal North was locked down under full federal control. No press releases, no media trucks, just shadows moving beneath high floodlights and the hollow echo of boots on concrete. Inside the sealed perimeter, the crate Delta had alerted on sat inside a mobile containment chamber, its smooth, unmarked surface betraying nothing about its contents. But Lauren knew. She knew because Delta had told her. Not in words, in posture, in that focused stillness she only adopted when it was life or death. Delta's bark wasn't a warning. It was a verdict. As federal analysts began scanning the crate, Lauren stood at a distance with Delta at her side. Hazmat techs in sealed suits approached the container with the kind of cautious choreography reserved for volatile compounds. The procedure was methodical. Heat sensors, pressure gauges, ion detectors, and still no readings, just like the briefcase. But Delta's reaction had been even more intense this time. Her body didn't shift. She didn't fidget. She locked onto the crate like it had a heartbeat of its own. Finally, a team member opened the crate using a remote hydraulic arm. Inside were 4 compartments, 2 containing identical thermos-style cylinders, one with vials of pale blue fluid, and the last, empty foam indentations, shaped perfectly for missing items. Whatever this was, it had been in transit, and part of it was already gone. The tech looked up, voice tight over the comm. "We've got a bigger problem. This crate was part of a matched set. Over the next 6 hours, 2 more packages were identified. One was already on a flight heading toward a private biotech facility in Maryland, posing as a shipment of medical-grade tissue samples. The other had already passed through San Diego International, scanned, cleared, and transferred to ground transport en route to a military contracting warehouse. The only reason anyone caught it? A note in the suspect's confiscated travel log, coordinates and carrier codes scribbled in shorthand, buried inside what looked like a grocery receipt. Had it not been for Delta's alert, the Phoenix crate would have vanished like the others. But now they had a lead, a location, a pattern, and a problem. The Phoenix compound had no known chemical signature, no heat output, no off-gassing, but Delta had picked it up. That meant she could track the others, and that made her critical to the case. By midday, Lauren and Delta were flown by private military transport to a federal containment site outside Bethesda, Maryland. The operation was under a joint task force, Homeland Security, FBI, and a classified military research wing no one could name. The room was small, cold, and crowded with decision-makers. Delta sat calmly at Lauren's feet while agents argued over jurisdiction and legality. "She's a city asset, not a federal one," said a bald man in a DHS windbreaker. "She's the only one who can detect this substance," countered a woman from the CDC. "Without her, we're blind." Lauren listened, silent. She didn't need to speak. Delta's presence was speaking for them both. Finally, a high-ranking official with sharp eyes and a long gray coat stepped forward. His voice cut through the noise. "She goes with the team. Wherever we find another shipment, she leads." There was no vote, no objections. Delta was now part of a national response unit. The Maryland facility was quiet, too quiet. Lauren and Delta arrived in an unmarked vehicle and were guided to a basement-level access tunnel. 3 floors below the surface, they reached a vault door already mid-unlock. Lauren knelt beside Delta, brushing the top of her head. "Find it." Delta moved like water, smooth, silent, precise. The room beyond the vault held dozens of sealed canisters, industrial steel, all tagged and barcoded. Engineers in face shields had already scanned each one, logging no abnormal readings. But Delta didn't need logs. She moved through the space like she'd seen it before, as if following memory, not scent. Then suddenly she stopped. A single crate, identical to the Phoenix model. Delta barked once, then again. The engineers froze. One of them dropped a scanner, another turned pale. "She's reacting. We've got a match," Lauren confirmed. And just like that, the theory became fact. This wasn't about individual bombs. It was a coordinated movement. Someone was building a distributed payload stored in plain sight, split across the country, and capable of slipping through every scanner in existence. Every scanner except Delta. That night, after the Maryland compound was locked down and its contents secured, Lauren sat in a small debriefing room with a mug of untouched coffee and a file folder marked CIR Level 5, Restricted Access. Inside were photos, surveillance stills, shipping logs, lab schematics, and one image that made Lauren's hands tighten on the file. It was a close-up of the vials Delta had discovered in Phoenix. A digital tag beside them listed their name, GVX Variant L-Series Prototype, Scentless Delivery, Engineered Trace Mask. According to the notes, this compound was specifically designed to bypass both chemical scanners and canine detection units. It had no natural odor profile, but Delta had found it. Twice, the lab notes scribbled in the margins explained it. Undetectable to natural olfactory systems unless altered by enhanced neural mapping. Lauren blinked. They weren't just smuggling chemicals. They were testing against dogs like Delta, trying to find something even she couldn't catch, and failing. So far. 1 week later, Delta was honored at a secure ceremony with no cameras, no public announcement, no press. Just 30 men and women who knew the truth about what had nearly happened. She didn't wear a ribbon. She didn't need a speech. Just a quiet moment in front of the task force and a simple golden badge added to her collar. Lauren knelt beside her and placed her hand on Delta's shoulder. No fanfare, just a whisper. A thank you between partners who had walked through fire together. They had stopped something terrifying, but the war wasn't over. 3 months passed, more shipments were intercepted, more crates found, some already empty, others still sealed. Each time, Delta was the first to alert. The programs were shut down, and every person in the chain, from Phoenix to San Diego to Flagstaff, said the same thing under interrogation. We didn't think anyone would find it. Not like that. Not by scent. Not by instinct. Not by a dog. Now, Delta spends most of her days retired in Lauren's backyard under a wide oak tree in the corner of the property. Her new collar gleams under the Arizona sun, and when neighborhood kids pass by, she perks up, tail flicking lazily. Sometimes Lauren finds her standing at the edge of the fence, watching the desert wind roll through the brush. Still alert, still listening, but not burdened, because she knows she did what no one else could. She stopped what no machine was built to see, not with code, but with connection, instinct, and trust. One evening, as the sun melted into the horizon, Lauren sat beside her on the porch steps, sipping cold tea. Delta rested her head on Lauren's leg, eyes half closed, and in that silence where nothing moved but shadows and wind, Lauren whispered, "You saved them, all of them." Delta didn't react. She didn't need to. She already knew. If you like these kind of real stories, just wait until you see what Delta uncovers next. Tap that like button if she earned it, and don't forget to subscribe, because the next story, it's one you'll feel long after it ends.